Welcome back to the Healer's Hut, everybody. Today I have for you, well, a saint that has run afoul slightly of history. He may or may not be a saint. No one knows his real name. No one knows when his feast day is. Well, they kind of do. There are very few things that are actually known about him, but he is actually the patron saint against procrastination and expedient solutions, which is why I am bringing him to you today because it is the back to school season. We are in the midst of, in the midst of the little ones and the big ones going off to school again. And you are probably getting back into routines. Maybe you've got new routines. Or, you know what, let's be honest, maybe you don't have kids and procrastination is the name of the game because whether you're a 5-year-old or 105, there is nothing as humans that we love more than to put off to tomorrow what you can do today. So, hey, we could all use a little help every now and then to avoid that and just buckle down and get things done. Now, what do I mean when they said he may be a saint, he may not be a saint? There's some question of as whether or not he existed. Yeah, that's right. There is that question of, was he real? Now we do have records of him, but the records are a bit unreliable, as it may be. So, and we don't know his real name. Yes, Saint Expeditus, also known as Saint Expedite, is a title. It's not a real name because expedite or expeditus is actually a Roman word for soldier, a light infantry soldier, actually, as you will hear again later. I am going to take this time to just put in a little note that I do apologize if there is repeat information or repeat audio. I recorded all of the voiceover stuff first and then did this. I will do the best I can to smooth it out, but there may be little bits and pieces here and there that I can't really break out without kind of throwing off the flow of things. So I do apologize in advance if that's the case. Anyway, back to Saint Expedite. Um, Now, his real name they think might be Elpidus, and that expedite was actually the scribal error. Now, how we know of him, and I'm going to apologize in advance again because I have tried to pronounce this and I stumble over it and butcher it every time. It is the Martyrologium Hieronymium, or the Martyrology of St. Jerome. And this was an ancient list of martyrs that was used during the Middle Ages, and it was actually calendar format. And it was the most famous list that came down to us today. But the Martyrology of St. Jerome is where all the scribal errors have occurred. Now, if you're not familiar with the methods of the Middle Ages, scribes hand wrote or hand transcribed all of the books. So, whoopsies, sorry. So all you need is one, woe-begotten monk who maybe had a little too much tipple the night before, or nearsighted, candle burning low, rainy day, bad copy, whatever it may be, or a series of events where different monks have just transcribed information wrong. Maybe they started to fall asleep and doze off while they were working. Whatever it may be, there's a lot of errors that have come down to us in the entries of Saint Expedite. I don't know if that applies to others that are listed in the book. I'm sure it does, but they might be able to be offset by other documents. He's not really listed in a lot of other documents. This is the only source that I have been able to find that he's listed in. Saint Expeditus, better known as Saint Expedite, is the patron saint of emergencies, expeditious solutions, which would also include legal battles or anything that you want a quick and fast remedy for, against procrastination, merchants, navigators. A relatively new one is programmers and hackers, and revolutionaries. What we do know about Saint Expedite is this, although it's not much. We do know he was Armenian. We do know that he was stationed in Turkey, or at least we assume he was stationed in Turkey, at the city of Melitene. Now, history suggests that if he is stationed there, that he must have been part of the Legio XII Fulminata. And we also can confirm that he was indeed a Roman centurion at that time. Now, he was martyred during the Diocletian persecution, and he was one of 6 soldiers that died that day. Now, here's the rub. No one is exactly sure when he died. It is said that he died either April 18th or April 19th. Now, his feast day is April 19th, at least according to the Catholic Church. However, he has been pulled off of the calendars that are provided by the church because they can't actually verify that. So I don't know if you've ever seen these. I'm not sure if they're sent out by the local archdiocese or if you can get them through various Roman Catholic charities. But each day either has a saint or multiple saints or angels or whatever that have a feast day on any particular given day. So he was one of the ones that was pulled off of the calendars because they just can't verify it, whether it's due to scribal errors, which is the problem with most of his history, or whether or not there is some debate that there were groups of centurions or groups of martyred killed both days, and they can't verify which one he was in. Well, whatever the reason, his feast day was pulled off of the calendar. It is, though, if you look it up, it is April 19th. That is the day that is his feast day. At least he's got that. Now, if you ever see a statue of Saint Expedite or a photo, you see him and he is holding a cross in his hand with the word Hodie, which is Latin for today, and he is stepping on a crow that is saying crass, which means tomorrow. The legend of Saint Expedite says that the day he was persecuted, or the day he died, was the day he converted to Christianity, and the devil came to him in the form of a crow, saying, "Well, why don't you convert tomorrow?" And he said, "No, I'm going to do it today." So that's part of the reason why he is the patron saint of expeditious solutions, as well as against procrastination. Now, as I mentioned, he was persecuted during the Diocletian persecutions. This is the last of the Roman persecutions against Christians. And in this instance, Diocletian did what none of the other Roman emperors had done before, was to pass laws outright banning Christianity. And anyone who was found practicing as such was obviously martyred. In previous persecutions, it had never actually been outlawed. It was more just, we don't like this new cult. We think they're a bunch of upstarts. We're going to start, trying to get rid of them. This case, it was legitimately outlawed until those laws were repealed. And we do know that the Diocletian persecutions ran from 303 to 304 AD. That is the time period in which we know he was executed. So we do know he at least died in 303, as I mentioned earlier. But this explains why when you see pictures of Saint Expedite or statues, he is dressed as a Roman centurion, which we can validate, and his cross says Hodie, and the crow says crass. If you know anything about, I think it's Julius Caesar, or crows come up quite often in Roman mythology and omens or divination, because it was believed that their caw, or in English we hear it as caw, the Romans heard it as crass, and that was translated as tomorrow, tomorrow. So sometimes people would think that if they had just done some kind of divination, whether it was the reading of bones or what's the word I'm looking for? Entrails, and then you were to hear a crow cawing, it might mean that your end was upon us, so to speak. Now, there are 2 versions of this one story I'm about to tell you that led to his patronage, supposedly. So around 1781, it was said that a box of remains or a box of statues was mailed to a convent in Paris. And from there, the nuns unpacked it and found the remains that they could not identify. Now, it is said that either the package was marked Spedito or it was marked with Expedite. In either case, they took that to be the saint's name. So they started worshiping him as Saint Expedite or Saint Expedite, however you choose to look at that. This all starts to fall apart when you realize that previously Saint Expedite had been chosen as the patron saint of the town Acciariale in Sicily. And not only that, let's see, prior to that, you have churches and devotion to him up until the early 18th century in Germany, as well as, oh, and in the 18th century, he is depicted in Germany, and he was plainly depicted as a saint to be invoked against procrastination. So this is where this kind of all starts to fall apart. Now, supposedly, the catacombs that the body was coming from was Denfert Rochereau in Paris that was being sent to the convent in Paris. So this specific myth has some layers to it and some, some different elements depending on where you find it and where you read it from. So it kind of falls apart a little bit here and there, but you kind of see where it's going. I didn't mention this in the voiceover, and I didn't mean to. I do mention the story I focused on was the one that I first heard, which came from Father Don Cambra of the Divine Mercy Chapel in New Orleans. This is another version of the New Orleans myth that says that because it was originally under French control and had been heavily influenced by French Catholic culture, at Our Lady of Guadalupe Chapel, they had received a big shipment of statues, and among them was a saint that no one was able to identify, and the label had been partially torn. So it was labeled Expedite in French, so the residents assumed that that must be the saint's name. Now, Expedite still figures prominently in Louisiana Creole folklore and is revered through amulets, flowers, candles, and intercessory prayers. So, as I'm going to say, or as I did say, I don't know where this is going in the video. Saint Expedite is well known and well loved in Louisiana, which is actually probably one of the best stories of his origins here in the US. So picture it, New Orleans, 1787 to 1790-ish, because this is roughly around the start of the French Revolution. A package arrives at the Ursuline Convent in New Orleans, and in it is a bunch of statues and figures of different saints that the sisters go about unpacking. Well, problem is there's a saint in there that none of them recognize. So they reach out to the bishop because they figure, well, we don't recognize him, but hopefully the bishop will. Well, bishop didn't recognize him either. So on the label was the word expedite. So and the return label had been ripped or whatnot. So they did try, in fact, to reach out to Paris, who had mailed them the package. Again, as I mentioned, this is sometime in the early stages of the French Revolution. So what ends up happening is the letter never makes it to Paris, and they never get any notification either on who is supposed to be in the package, a list or manifest, whatnot. So this statue of this Roman centurion that they see becomes to be known Expedite because that's the name that's on the box. Expedite, or in French, Expedite. So they put the statue they called Expedite in the hallway of the school where it remained for decades. The students at the convent eventually developed what is referred to as the 9-hour novena to Saint Expedite. Now, usually novenas are 9 days long. This one, per our saint, is naturally shortened for expedient purposes. His devotion continued to grow among the student body, and he gained a reputation for bringing fast results to prayers. This is one of the things that I love about this myth. I actually, when I first heard about Saint Expedite, thought it was the 9-minute novena, and I went on a search for that novena, and I wanted so badly to find it, and instead I found the 9-hour one. I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm misremembering, and it's really just a 9-hour novena. Regardless, it's still absolutely fantastic. Like, this poor saint is nothing but a comedy of errors, and it's just fantastic because it's just comical no matter how you look at it, that no one knows who he is. He's a saint, supposedly. There is, as I mentioned earlier, some question as to whether or not he actually existed and who he was. Here he is. He has developed this following across Europe and now in the United States. Although I don't think he's really moved outside of Louisiana as far as devotion. Like, more people are probably hearing about him now because of books and YouTube and whatnot, but his church, I think the biggest church dedicated to him, is still in New Orleans. And if someone can just let me know in the comments if that church still exists, because up here in the Northeast we've had a lot of churches merge, get closed, sold, so if I should ever make it there, I would just love to go to this church, and I hope it is still dedicated to Saint Expedite. The 9-hour novena is in itself a beautiful masterpiece, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work backwards from it for a very simple reason. Because as much as Saint Expedite is a Roman Catholic saint, how he came to be known to me is actually through Voudon, or Vodou, or Voodoo. I can't remember if they are 3 separate branches of the same religion or if it's different names depending on what country of origin you're from. But the 9-hour novena comes in 2 elements. So you can do it under the Roman Catholic way, or you can set up an altar and you can go more the Voudon route in order to do that. And they provide you with an image of the altar and links as well to the novena. Here's how it works from the Voudon side. So you take a red candle. If you don't have a red candle, you can use white. So your candle goes at the back of the altar to form the tip of the triangle formation. In front and to the left, place a glass of water. Front and to the right of the triangle, place an image or prayer card, statue, whatever you can get your hands on of Saint Expedite. And then you put the silver bell in the front, so it's that diamond pattern. So once you're ready, you turn him upside down, or yeah, I guess even if you take an image, you're going to turn it upside down. So, and this shows that you're ready to work with him. You ring the bell 3 times, or you tap the glass of water 3 times. You can just use a fork or a spoon to tap your glass of water. Now, one thing that is important, no matter how you're doing this, if you're doing the more Roman Catholic version or you're doing the Voudon version, is you do have to be willing to dedicate 9 hours of prayer to this. So the reason why I'm giving you the link to the vlog, or blog rather, it's not a vlog, it's a blog, that I found this is because novenas can be very intense. They give you a prayer to open with. It's usually the sign of the cross, the act of contrition, and then each hour has a different prayer to Saint Expedite, and then a different number of, say, I think Hail Marys, Our Fathers, maybe the Apostles' Creed. I don't remember. It's not up in front of me right now. But each one has its own separate set of prayers that you say after each hour. Now, if you're doing a regular novena, a 9-day novena, it's the same deal. You have your sign of the cross, act of contrition, prayer for the day, series of consecutive prayers that you pray, and then I'm assuming there's a way to end it, or maybe you just simply say amen, and then you go about the rest of your day. And then the next day, day 2, different set of, different prayer of petition, different set of prayers. So maybe, day 1, it's like 1 Our Father, 2 Hail Marys, and an Apostles' Creed. Day 2, 3 Our Fathers, 5 Hail Marys, and prayer to St. Francis. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go because I don't have anything in front of me to reference. So, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it is. All right. So now back to our 9-hour novena. So you have Saint Expedite upside down, whether it's an image or a statue. You've tapped on your glass of water, and you have made sure that you can do 9 hours of this, of dedication. Placing the saint upside down is a New Orleans Voodoo tradition. And then once you're done, be prepared to offer thanks. Now on the blog, it says that you should offer public thanks. Traditionally, from a Roman Catholic, it's either public or private thanks. So you can do something like acts of service. I believe on the blog it mentions posting somewhere online your gratitude and thanks. And then you can also do the private end. You can do another novena as thanks. You can do, you can send money to a shrine or maybe to the Church of Saint Expedite. There are also locations in Europe that you might be able to do something. It might be donating time, your soup kitchen, or to children's charity, the local hospitals, whatever you can do is kind of an act of thanks and gratitude for the saint doing what you wish. And one thing that is important that you need to bear in mind, just like with anything, this is for, you want the prayer to be answered if it isn't for your greatest and highest good, if it is used for a positive purpose, healings, blessings, gratitude, getting a job, out of debt, etc. So that is one thing that you do want to bear in mind for these novenas. Well, usually from a Roman Catholic purpose, you are hopefully doing it for a positive purpose. From the Voudon tradition or Voodoo tradition, in this instance, you want it to be in your greatest and highest good for your best interest and whatnot, that you are reaching out through Saint Expedite. I will get to that in a little further, because one of the reasons why Saint Expedite is so deeply loved in New Orleans and in the Voodoo tradition is who he is syncretized to. So in Voodoo, a lot of the Catholic saints are syncretized to different spirits from that tradition, but we will get there. Now, back to us. Saint Expedite is well loved in New Orleans, and I really don't know if his faith, his prowess, no, if his influence has spread throughout the rest of the U.S., unless you're really from New Orleans, which is how I learned about him. And why I just love his story. As haphazard as it is, it's just, I remember just sitting there laughing, wondering why had I never heard about the saint before, because I could have used him when I was in high school and college, for that matter, which is why this just became the perfect idea for me to do for the back to school season. But, I mean, like I said before, really, I think any adult or child could use this person, could use some intercession and help from this saint. Now, as I mentioned, now there is the 9-hour novena that is explained. I will also give you links to the regular 9-day novena, which you can also do. Now, in Catholicism, there's a couple different ways you can do novenas. You can just sit down, pray them, and be done with it. will not be done with it, but you know what I mean. And the 9-hour novena can be treated the same way. It doesn't really require candles or an altar or whatnot, just some quiet time. And remember, whether you are doing the 9-day novena or the 9-hour novena, you need to be able to give yourself 9 days or 9 hours in which to perform this novena. So please bear that in mind, that it has to be a consecutive time period. If you, I don't really know what happens if you forget a day. If you have to start over, not really sure how that works. Same thing with the 9-hour one. If you skip an hour, if you have to kind of start from the beginning again. I'll leave that up to you, what feels right to you. I would be inclined to maybe start over, um, just because you want that continuity, but that's really up to you. Now, in the 9-hour novena, it mentions having a candle and an image of the saint on your altar. Now, this is actually, realistically, I think this is found throughout the Catholic Church. I don't know if it is just culturally something I find in Southern European homes and in Latin America, where it's not uncommon to have saints and candles in front of them, or 7-day candles with the image of the saint on it, and you light them and then you say your prayers, or you offer, you light them as you say your prayers, you have it lit while you're praying. That to me is just normal. That's how I grew up. So that's why I say you don't have to go through all that. If you do, you can. You can, get a picture or an image, or just print one out off the computer and hang it up. Again, just be careful what kind of candle you're using. So, if you have a prayer card or you've printed it out, just make sure your candle is not on top of your paper, because you don't want to catch anything to catch fire. I would say if you want to or you need to use battery operated candles, go right ahead. If you're in a dorm room or you're in a place where you can't light candles, or you don't feel comfortable lighting them, that's fine. The Vodou tradition might say otherwise, but from a Catholic perspective, that's just fine. And that's really what I'm focusing on in this little bit, is just strictly the Roman Catholic perspective. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're Roman Catholic or not. If you feel that you need help with something, I have, my opinion is the saints, the angels, the ascended masters, Buddhas, whoever it is you are beseeching or appealing to for help, I don't really think it matters what religion you are. If there's something going on and that's who feels right to pray to, then go for it. If you don't think that way, that's fine. Then you're just here for the fun. But that being said, so yeah, so you can just say your novena, sit in a quiet place. I don't think you need rosary beads, but if you want to pull them out, go right ahead. And then you say, the assigned prayer, however, many Our Fathers, Hail Marys, and whatever other prayers might be required, whether it's an act of contrition, Apostles' Creed. I'm not even sure what else they would throw in there. There's a number of, Glory Bees, Guardian Angel prayers, whatever it may be. And then that's fine. You can also choose to light a candle in front of the saint, or just light a candle with a petition to the saint while you pray and then blow it out. If you're doing the 9-hour novena and you choose to do that, if you want to get a pillar candle and just keep it lit, you can. If you want to get a bunch of intention candles, I have seen them sold in bundles of 10. So that way at least you have one extra. You can use those as well and just light one each hour. But that's really up to you. You don't have to do that. That's perfectly fine. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a red candle. White is usually used in most traditions when you're not really sure, because it encompasses all colors. If you have a bunch of green candles or pink candles or whatever, and you're like, well, I don't want to have to go out and buy white or red ones, use those. Use any color that you have. It's fine. But again, you don't have to do that. I'm just giving you kind of a series of examples, because it's kind of like if you've ever gone to a Catholic church and you see the niches, or the our church doesn't really have a niche. It's a statue, I believe, of the Blessed Mother, and then there's a set of candles off to the side. And another one, there's a statue of the Blessed Mother, and statue of the Blessed Mother, and then like a set of candles right in front, right by the door. So, and then they're usually like, I was almost going to say 50 cents, but I think it's more like $1 to a couple dollars. It depends on the size of the candle. And then you would just light it and say your petition, your prayer, and then go on your merry way, either into Mass or leave if you were on your way out. So that's kind of where this idea is coming from, that you can do this in your own home if you should so choose. Again, you do not have to, but that's another layer to kind of the Catholic approach of the novena, whether it's the 9-day or 9-hour. It's up to you. The 9-day is the traditional novena. 9-hour is the one that the girls in the convent came up with. Still sad that I couldn't find a 9-minute one. If it is out there somewhere, can someone send me a link? I'm legitimately curious as to what that would be, but it probably is 9 hours, and I just remembered it wrong. Although a 9-minute one would be pretty funny. Because I think it would. One of the reasons why he is so well loved in the Vodou tradition is who he is syncretized to, and he is synchronized to Baron Samedi or Samedi. I found both pronunciations, and he is one of the head spirits of the Loa. So his name means one of two things. It's either Baron Saturday, and he is the master of the cemetery. He is the Lord of the Dead, Grand Master of the Celestial Masonic Lodge of Vodou Spirits, on a 32nd degree initiated Mason, which do with that what you will. He is known as a powerful healer. He can be petitioned with his consort Madame Brigitte, together for fertility, protection, or to save ailing children. The other thought is that his name just looks like the French word for Saturday, but is really a play on the word Simbi or zombie. But he is one of probably the main spirits. You'll notice in the center picture that he is depicted with dark glasses and one lens is missing. And the theory behind that is that the glasses may be missing a lens because he possesses two kinds of vision. He simultaneously sees the realm of the living and the dead. So he is both a kind deity, but he is also a bit sprite-like, shall we say. No one dies unless he knows, or unless he has approved it. And the reason why he is known as Baron Saturday is because Saturday is the one day that Jesus was well and truly dead, between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. So it is said that even Jesus must pay homage or obey Lord Samedi on Saturday. Just a word of caution here. If you don't know what you're doing and you have not grown up in this tradition, do not summon spirits that you don't understand or don't know how to handle. The Loa are meant to both help and can hinder, I'll say. So don't just invoke them passively just for the sake of it, or for, shits and giggles, so to speak. It's one thing with the Catholic Church if you make a promise to a saint or the angels or whoever, and for whatever reason you can't follow through. There's a saying that God understands, and it's not the end of the world if you have to change how things are done. These are not forgiving spirits. If you can't follow through on a promise, you'd better explain why, or figure out a way to follow through. So do not mess with things you do not understand, is the best thing I can say to you when it comes to these spirits. Even in writing this, I have referred to him as good sir, the kind baron, and whatnot, just out of plain out of respect, because I am not overly familiar with voodoo or vodou. Um, what I do know, it basically came from this book. It's not something I have looked tremendously into, but it seemed disrespectful to not include this because this is actually how I found out about Saint Expedite, was through Baron Samedi. And I just thought the story was hysterical and therefore wanted to share it with all of you for the back to school season. So, but yeah. So the Baron is how I ended up discovering Saint Expedite. You will also notice that the Baron is a lover of cigars, offerings of black coffee, plain bread, dry toast, roasted peanuts. He drinks rum, which 21 very hot peppers have been steeped, cigars, cigarettes, dark sunglasses, Day of the Dead toys, raise the skull and crossbones, pirate flag for him, beautiful wrought iron crosses are crafted in his honor. If you should encounter him, if you are a practitioner or this is something that calls to you, Baron Samedi manifests as an older, dark-skinned man in formal attire dressed completely in black. He wears a black top hat, black suit, maybe smoking one of his beloved cigars. I don't know if he's also dressed like this or these are just other colors that are associated with him, but black and then also red and purple, which you kind of see in these images as they are depicted. He's got purple accents in one, red in another. He does favor children, which I actually found very interesting. He wants children to live a good life, and he also women seeking to conceive, funeral workers, grave diggers, those whose work bring them in contact with the dead. But yeah, like I said before, don't invoke things if you're not completely sure who or what they are. Thanks for stopping by. If you've been enjoying the content, please hit the like and subscribe button. Ring the notification bell so that you get updates on when videos are posted. Thank you so much for the time, for spending time with me today, and I'll see you again. Take care, my friends. Bye.